If you are applying for cloud jobs right now, I can almost guarantee the projects at top of your resume is one that hiring managers has seen already a few hundred times this month. The to-do app, the portfolio website you deployed to storage account, the things you followed along in all the tutorials, and here's the uncomfortable part. None of those projects answers the one question the hiring manager is actually asking, which is whether you can make real decisions in the real environment. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 Azure projects that genuinely gets you hired, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what each one proves to the person reading your resume. And then at the end, I'm going to give you 3 projects that everyone builds and that quietly waste your time. So stick around for those because you might be working on one of them right now. Hi, my name is Parveen Singh. I run a cloud consulting firm and I have been building on Azure for almost a decade. And I've sat on the hiring side of the table more times than I can count on. This is Cloud with Singh. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please bump the subscribe button and come join my learning community. Now, before we get into the 5, I need to explain a very simple idea that makes a project worth putting on your resume. Because once you get this, you'll be able to judge any project idea on your own. Alright, so here's the first thing. A certification tells a hiring manager that you can recognize the right answer. A good project, however, tells them that you can reach the right answer when nobody is giving you the option to pick from. And when a hiring manager looks at your project, they're quietly checking whether you can prove few core skills. Can you design something that fits a real problem? Or can you automate it instead of clicking it together by hand? Can you secure it? Can you run it and know when it breaks? Every project I'm about to give you is built to prove one of these skills and to let you answer real interview question with a real story instead of definitions. One more thing before we start. Every one of these you can build in your own Azure environment. So if you want a guided version with steps and real environment to break things in, I've got labs for each of them on CloudLearn and I will leave them in the description below. So now let us get into the 5 projects. Project number 1 is the multi-tier application that you can deploy with infrastructure as code, either using Bicep or Terraform. So you have front-end, back-end, and database sitting in a virtual network with the right subnet, and the whole thing is defined in code rather than clicked together in the portal. Now, what does this actually prove to the hiring manager? It proves that you can design a solution and in the environment that fits a problem. Second, that you can rebuild it on demand. Because here's the interview question that project lets you answer. When they say, walk me through how your environment is built and how you would stand it up again in the another region, you do not freeze there. You describe your template. The thing that will not work here is building it once through clicking the portal and then writing the bicep afterwards to match. You have to start from code because the whole point is you understand what each resource is and why it is there. If you cannot explain why your database sits in a separate subnet from your application, the project is not doing its job. Project number 2 is continuous integration and delivery pipeline built with GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps. The goal is you take your code and deploy it to Azure automatically. So when you push the change, it builds, it runs the test. If everything passes, it ships your environment without you touching anything. This one proves that you can automate the path from a developer's laptop all the way to production, which is a huge part of the actual job. The interview question it answers is, how does your code get from your machine to the production environment and what happens when the stage fails? The mistake to avoid is copying a pipeline file from someone's repo and pasting it without understanding what each stage does. Because the moment an interviewer asks you why your deployment step runs only after your test pass, you need to actually know the answer, not guesses. Project number 3 is taking an application and putting it in a container app and running it on either AKS or container services. You write a Docker file, build an image, deploy it to AKS or container app with the right deployment and services. This proves that you understand the container and the orchestration, which is one of the most asked areas about right now. The question it lets you answer is, why did you choose Kubernetes here and what happens when one of the pod dies? And the second part matters because a lot of people can deploy to AKS by following a guide, but they freeze when you ask them what self-healing actually does. The thing that will not work is jumping straight into Kubernetes without ever understanding why it exists. If you cannot explain what problem Kubernetes is solving for you, you are just collecting YAML files. Project number 4 is one of the most important that almost nobody puts on their resume, and this is the one that makes you stand out the most. You take a workload, you lock it down properly, and you put identity in front of it. With Entra ID, use a managed identity instead of leaving secret sitting in a code, and you take your database off of the public internet and use private endpoints. This whole thing proves that you can think about security from the start, and this is exactly what separates a junior who can deploy from someone who a company can actually trust with the production. The interview question it answers is who can reach this and how is it not exposed to the public internet. I have done this work for clients in a lot of industries, and I can tell you the engineers who can talk through identity and networking isolation gets taken seriously in a way that the others do not. What will not work here is treating security as a checkbox. If you bolt it on after the fact, you'll not be able to explain the decisions because you never actually made them. Project number 5 is the one that's adding monitoring, alerting, and the working cost guardrail to something you have built. So you wire up metrics and logs, you create an alert system that actually fires when something goes wrong, and you set a budget with an alert so that bill cannot quietly run away from you. This proves that you can not only build something but also run it, which is the part most beginners skip entirely. The question answered here is, how would you know this broke before a user told you? And how do you keep it from blowing a budget? And here's the thing I see constantly in the real environment. People configure a cost alert and never test whether it fires or not. So it sits there like a smoke detector. So on your project, actually trigger the alert and prove that it works. What will not work is adding a dashboard and a few charts and calling it observability. A dashboard nobody looks at is not monitoring. The alert that wakes you up is the thing that counts. Alright, so those are the 5 that gets you hired. Now let me give you 3 that everyone builds and is quietly wasting your time, because I would rather have you stop right now than spend another month on one of these. The first one is generic to-do app or a basic portfolio website with no real infrastructure behind it. It is a fine way to learn for a weekend, but it makes no architecture decisions, so there's nothing for you to defend in the interview, and the recruiter already has seen it like 1,000 times. The second one is tutorial clone, where you actually follow a 4-hour video on how to click and end up getting exactly what the instructor had said. The problem is that you never answered a single why on your own. So the moment something changes in scenario of the interview, you are stuck. The third one, which is I call trophy stack, this is where you bolt 15 services together and you chase a newest preview feature just to make project looks impressive. It actually does the opposite because it signals that you optimize for shiny instead of solving a problem. And the hiring manager can spot that across the room. So always start with the basics and get the fundamental services covered first. Now before I let you go, here's the single most important thing, and it is the biggest than which project you pick. The project itself is not what gets you hired. What gets you hired is a story that you can tell about it. Same project can be worth nothing and worth everything depending on how you talk about it. So for every project on your list, you want to be able to say what you built, what broke while you were building it, and how you fixed it out. Build it, broke it, and made it better. That's your story, what proves you can actually do the work. Because at the end of the day, company's not paying you for nice repo. They are paying you to solve a problem that makes them money and saves them money. And the project that you can use is just a proof that you can do that exactly. So here's where you actually are. You can spend the next 3 months building another to-do app or tutorial clone, or walk into interview with nothing you can defend. Or you can build these 5, designing it, automating it, containerizing it, securing it, and running it, and walk in with the real 5 stories that actually answers all the questions in the interviews. Let me know in the comment which one of these 5 you are going to start with, and if you're weak in any of them, that's probably one to build first. Go build something real, and I'll see you in the cloud.